Okay, good morning everybody. My name is Rosner. I'm coming from Jerusalem, that's in Israel. And we've created our little group after the previous conference. We're working with Borghini and Boonstra, which you all know, and Silva that you've met before. And we were looking at a very specific test case in Jerusalem, super contested city, of placemaking. An experiment that the municipality took place. Oh, how do you do that? Well, one of them must work.
Is it on? At the side there is a... Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so the municipality is looking for new ways to making cities. We're talking about communication between communities, and the term community and communities in Jerusalem is super complex as it is. And we're talking about different way of processes, different attitude to making cities, and we will explain within a minute. So we are talking about Jerusalem. As you probably know, super contested city, one of the most contested in the world. We're talking about a very high level of instability. If we're talking system-wise, if we want to observe it as a system, which is not easy as an inhabitant, as a resident, but yes, it is very unstable. It is very much divided. We're talking about a lot of sub-communities within one community, very conflictual in between. We have three different city business centers because we cannot live together. The one is Palestinian, and the other one is ultra-Orthodox, and the other one is just a normal city center. Well, as normal as it can be. Well, you compare everything to everything. As normal as it gets in Israel, but the situation from the municipality point of view, the situation is that business as usual cannot go on as it goes normally for now, in the last decade or so. So they are looking for new approaches, new ways of doing things, new methodologies, and one of them is placemaking. Very small local initiatives, because locally maybe the community can function, and we are just sort of initiated an experiment, an urban experiment of 70 different projects of placemaking taking place in Jerusalem by classical placemaking methodology of asking people, what would you like to see here in your neighborhood, just next to your house, next to your school, next to wherever you live. You don't have to be, to have the big picture at the moment. Just look locally, look very specific on your own community, your own needs. So, since we are looking at it through the lens of a complex system, we're looking at the actors. We want to see the relations. We are mainly interested in the relations between the communities and the municipality, and how can the municipality function in a different way than the way she is used to function. So the municipality, that would be the institution in our game, and it already had created community centers. We have 28 community centers in Jerusalem, super active, very functioning. They do work locally. In the Palestinian side, they work with Palestinian workers, etc. And with the ultra-Orthodox community, they have ultra-Orthodox community worker, community planner, etc. And we have these public companies that are also functioning not bad, and they're all part of the municipality. The municipality is financing all of this. Another actor, an important actor, of course, are the communities, the local communities, with our specific test case, who have initiated, they proposed 126 projects of placemaking, and after a certain process, we have chosen 70 of those projects. So we have the local communities, most of them are not communicating with the municipality, and we have the municipality. And then we have a set of mediators. One of the most important mediator would be the community center and a function of community planner, which we have in Jerusalem. In each and every community center, we have a community planner, which is a mediator man. He works on the trail between, on the arrow between the municipality and the formal, and the informal, and the locally. And we've added, as part of the project, a community, local placemaker students that were responsible for doing placemaking with local communities, asking them what would you like to see here. Then we've added another mediator, which is us, the Urban Clinic of the Hebrew University, academic. We were supervising, we were monitoring, we were making this workshop together with Paolo and Beitke and with Elfasi and some other researchers and professionals from Israel, working with the local activists, with the local people together in the field, and afterwards taking some time for ourselves to think a little bit, and this is actually what you see here. And we are also documenting through Palestinian students at the Palestinian side, Orthodox students in the Orthodox, So we work very locally and trying to look back. This is our role as academy. So we are sort of mediators as well, we are a player. And the municipality is also paying for project managers, which are experts at community planning and community projects, of making things happen. So we have this complex system, semi-system in this group, and we're trying to look at it from a systematic point of view, just for you to see the project. It's 70 projects that are all in certain levels. It is going on now, it is happening now. So it's about street art, a lot of street art, it's a lot of community just clean the place so we can play here, so the kids will have a place to play. So that's the before and the after in the Orthodox. A lot of community gardens, community libraries, community whatever, community markets, all sorts of community initiatives, local, very tiny local ones, community libraries I just said, a lot of community activities, just the place exists but we want to activate it. So they did. A lot of places to sit and read, quiet places in the city. Jerusalem is super intensive, super messy, and people just wanted quiet, peaceful places to sit and read, or to sit and be together and to do things together. In the corners, we're talking about tiny, tiny, tiny little projects, but 70 of them.
That's me.
Now, what we will try and see, can we learn something from this project and from these relations between the municipality and the actors to the general, something that could be relevant in other places, something that could be relevant for other situations. So Ifan would tell you that better than me.
As Yara introduced, what we try to do is to take this case study, which is extremely articulated, and to extract some sort of understanding which is more general. The first thing is that we needed a way to describe the city as a system which will have a multi-scalar thinking, which is not hierarchical, because of all the actors that we have seen. So we didn't want to make this big distinction between this is the institution and this is the community. So we used the concept of assemblage. It's taken from the Landa. Beitke knows everything about it, so go to her. But it's about mostly looking at the city as a process. And it is a process which goes through territorialization or coding, where coding is a form of generating a territory, but through specific entities like genes of words. So the assemblage can also be composed and dismantled, so differently from the general understanding of system, it does not bind the components together, but the components can be part and not be part, can be in and out, can belong to different assemblage, which is very relevant for the actors that we are looking at. And from our standpoint, we use the parameter of coding because we are looking at it from the standpoint of urban planning, which has codes, where codes are the institutions, the norms, the planning norms, and we wanted to see how the shift along this parameter can provide different kind of behavior. So we had two main questions. We actually had many, but eventually we put two in the paper because we had to reduce. So if we have a thoroughly coded system, like urban planning understood in its classical way, where does novelty emerge from? Because we see that the city constantly evolves, but we have to understand, from our standpoint, we wanted to understand where is this novelty emerging? Is it emerging in the code? Is it emerging somewhere else? And if at all, we can provide a form of organization that in this kind of unstable situation will provide the stability which is needed to govern an unstable situation, while giving the flexibility, the plasticity, which is necessary to adapt fastly to kind of emergency situations which are constantly jumping up. And here we made this very wild conceptual jump, and we all said, yes, epigenetics. And then I found myself alone in front of it, but it's okay. So epigenetics, it's a really interesting and immense field. So forgive the reduction, because what you're going to hear now, it's a reduction. But it's a very interesting tool of understanding which kind of shift is happening in our paradigm of information. Which means, first of all, this is one of the first figures from the beginning of the 20th century that was made to try to understand how come we have cells which they all have the same genetic code, but actually some become bones and some become hairs without changing the code, so they express differently. And this was the first scheme that allows you to see that with one code you can have what they call a competence landscape, where competence means a set of variable solutions that can be expressed from the same code. And this actually made a lot of sense also in the city. Now, this I put you here only because one of the things that I realized while trying to understand epigenetics and the amazing figures, and it's the kind of complexity that you need for this self-regulated system to actually work. It is incredible. It's like you cannot really model it in any fashion. This is really tiny, tiny, small part of all of the processes there, but you can see that we have a lot of middlemen that are actually interacting in 5 minutes. Okay, so anyway, to go to the dogma of molecular biology, you have this kind of flow of information that takes the code. From the code it goes to some kind of translator mediator, and from there it goes to actuation. And why it is interesting, it's because we think of code in these terms in every field of our life. There is the code also in urban planning, and from the code you just go to actuation. You don't bring information back from actuation to code. Until now, novelty was the genius that would come and change the code, which is equivalent to random genetic mutation, no more, no less. And we believe that there are different ways for this to happen. This is what we want to investigate. So epigenetics actually gives a systemic possibility for change without changing the code. And in a very leap of faith, I put it in 3 main categories. So we observe a change in the structure of the DNA. So you have actually in the structure of the code some kind of change which open accessibility or close accessibility. The second category is that you have a very vast population of mediators which are interacting in different fashion. And the third one is that you have a lot of thresholds interaction, which means feedbacks. So that when you pass a certain kind of process, at a certain point you have a switch in behavior. And this is what we try to look at in our project, 5 minutes. So this is also, it's a very, very schematic first representation of epigenetics when they still didn't even know that DNA is DNA, but you have a level which is the genes, a level which is the mediator, and then you have the level of the phenotype, which is the actuation. And what Waddington did here, which was the one that created the term epigenetics, he actually showed which kind of feedbacks exist not between the actors, but between the particular relations. And this is what we actually noticed in the kind of project. So what we did here, we put one layer, it's the institution and norms, so it's the actors of the municipality. And there we can see the community centers are kind of changing structure that actually open accessibility. And then we have a very varied cloud of intermediates. And then we have the fundamental units of the city that for us it was communities and spaces and the way they interact between them. And then we try to describe the feedbacks. We have a paper which is infinite, I'm sorry, so I'm not going to speak about it. So what it gave us, it was a way to integrate between the coded part of the city and the non-coded part of the city as a landscape of epigenetic mechanism. So tactical urbanism, placemaking, activism, pop-up events, they all belong to this kind of epigenetic mechanism in our. And this is how we try to look at this project of placemaking. And then we actually saw that the things that did work, one was this structural modification, so it was also changing policy and also this community center. The second one is that the more intermediate emissaries we had, and the more somehow they did find their unique chains, and the one that worked self-reinforced themselves, and the other ones somehow kind of disappeared. And you need this also towards the institution and also towards the community, because the community itself is a closed event. So you need to penetrate it in a fashion which is effective. So it's very important to think of the chains going both sides. It's not only accessibility to institution, it's also accessibility to community. And the third one, it was the kind of feedbacks that were created by meetings, flows of information, some more, some less, you know. It was the kind of... okay, so one of the things that we noticed, and then I'm almost there, one of the things that we noticed, there are many more, but we need to... one of the things that we noticed is that what really worked was these shortened chains, which mean that where the brokers in the middle managed to connect effective people in the community to effective position in the institutions, somehow the 6 months of the project yield an actual result. And the more interesting part is that, I finish. It's actually that we have seen that with this project, which was very wide and articulated, but it was relatively really short, it was about 6 months, which is nothing for this. We actually already went out with epigenetics speaks about the possibility of the information go the reverse way, which means you go out with this exploration and stabilization of local solutions, which are not very high risks, but they are very diverse, so you have a parallel kind of exploration. And then this can go back towards the code and eventually allow some kind of memory and on the long run to change it. So one of the things that already happened in these 6 months is that they realized that there is a particular form in the city, which is public-private spaces, that they need to deal with. Doesn't matter what it is now. They need to deal with, and they already issued another project that is going to deal with this in order to understand how to re-regulate the thing. And the other one is that they actually, through this project and the amazing description of epigenetics that Yara did to the planning authority, convinced them to let her work with the master plan of a Palestinian neighborhood in a fashion that it's totally non-classical. She doesn't start from the master plan, she starts from community-led initiatives, and only in a second, third moment the master plan will come, and also there is this multi-level simultaneous work, and it made sense to them, which I think is not trivial. I think so. Yara, Ben, Paolo.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful example of how this group forms a platform for taking up this kind of initiatives. You're invited to respond.
Yes, thank you. I find it a very interesting paper, especially because I didn't know anything about epigenetics.
Yes,
And I was thinking about the biomimicry approach as well, using ecological aspects to sort of simulate how the nature evolves and how things are going on. I had many questions, but two of the main important ones are partly methodological questions and one about I was wondering, for the methodological part, did you already have this epigenetic approach before, or did you just invent it afterwards?
No, it was in the middle. In the middle. No, and this is very important. It was in the middle, which means that the process started, and then we actually entered the project, and we had this idea. And then what we could do, we could build the interviews, which means the second part of the data collection, on this idea, and to see if it goes with it, if it allows us to understand some things that we didn't understand before.
But we didn't see.
I just was wondering about how they influence the results or not.
We did assume when we started, we really started it as an experiment.
Mm-hmm.
When we set the urban clinic set with the municipality people, we really thought about it as an experiment, and we didn't go into the details, but there are 3 different routes because we wanted to experiment different mechanisms, etc., etc. And we did think that we will look for ways to change the urban code.
Mm-hmm.
So we did have this feedback in our minds, but we didn't know anything about epigenetics until Silva joined.
And a long discussion at the kitchen table.
With babies all around.
The second question?
The second question is related to this urban code you just mentioned. I was wondering, what was the urban code, and will it ever change? And what moment do you place the urban code? Is it 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago?
No.
What is this urban code?
Well, we were relating to the set of rules and regulations that are activated today as the urban code. For us.
But then this urban code will also change. Having this approach to epigenetics, it's you've got a similar approach, which doesn't change, but only the phenotype. The way it's being expressed.
Okay, so epigenetic has 2 parts which are both really interesting. One is this idea of the competence landscape, which means one code, many expression.
Mm-hmm.
The other idea, which is the more revolutionary one, is that as of today we understand that organisms respond to challenges in real time epigenetically. And these epigenetic mutations are transferred across generations, which mean that actually these micro changes are able to influence future direction of evolution.
So but then this is about 6 months. You're talking about generations when you see the expression. So
So the idea is, first of all, to include, to integrate within the mechanism of development of a city the very local, small, spontaneous, activist aspects and fringes of the city. This is the first thing. The second thing is to try to understand what are the kind of emergent mechanisms, like short chains, in which the information can go back towards the institution and allow the code to consider it along its next junction of change. Because we know that codes that not change in a gradual fashion, especially not in norms and institutions, they have a moment in which they do a review. So if we manage to bring the information in this kind of junction, then we know that it might be considered, or it might bring a certain, it might change the sensitivity. So this was the idea of the reverse information.
Okay, we have time for 2 more questions. Kenny?
Thank you for the presentation. I think the genetics was just marvelous, kind of like a discovery for this. I really enjoyed it and really listened carefully. It just reminded me, let me know if I'm on the right track. I kind of felt like it was a little bit similar than, but more sophisticated, of course, than Salinger's idea of kind of like a computational planning or design in traditional communities, where you kind of like in the building, you are finding the relations, the kind of codes, urban codes, between the buildings, between the activities, and they change in time. So you kind of like it's kind of like an analogical computation of the city over time. So do you see any connections to that?
So I think that
I'm just nodding.
I think that what Salinger shows in his work, which is really interesting, is how by giving units and kind of rules of the game, you allow a level of creativity in very basic resources communities. What we try to do here, though it definitely has a connection, it's more to create a kind of perspective from the standpoint of institution, to understand the development of the city. It's not on them, it's on the integration of this overall system. And then the details of how exactly you go into this parallel solution, it will change constantly, it will never be the same.
So you have the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much. It was very inspiring, and the epigenetic is because on my list, I've been reading that since about I think in the 90s. It was considered part of Caesar's work. This methodology was epigenetic. But there's something in your presentation that went too fast for me, which might be crucial, is where you said that if I look on time ago, when there were more intermediate emissionaries, there was a positive impact on the project. It went too fast, I couldn't follow it. I think that more might be more diverse, and then diversity, I didn't really understand that.
What we are actually, one back to this, okay.
Yeah.
What we actually understood, it's, yes, I went very fast on this. It's not only, bring in 1,000 people, because then nothing happens. But what we realized is that when you work on a wide territory, like this project, it was 40 different neighborhoods, and each one is a different character and a different community. The fact that there were different types of emissaries allowed different cut-through to happen according to the community. So some worked very well with the placemaker, and some worked very well with the community worker. Some worked only with the community planner, but there are some strategic positions that made the difference. So, for example, the municipality approached the head of operation and told him, you are going to open the doors to this project. So this is something that made the difference.
Is it then not just a question of more intermediaries, but a very adapted cast of certain intermediaries?
Yeah, I would say so.
Thank you so much.
You would agree?
I'm not sure. I think the positions are very important. This is why I put this slide, actually, because it's Eden Company, which is actually part of the municipality, so they're acceptable by the municipality. So he could have a budget. This is why his picture is here. He could just have €1 million for this project. He could just do that. So he's a very important mediator, but he's very specific. If you remove him specifically, the specific person, you remove him, you replace him. They're just doing it by now. We won't have another project for next year. Okay, so it's something very, very specific. But he is a mediator.
Budget.
No, the person who can get the budget. is a very important mediator because he can do this movement from taking the budget from the municipality and put it to the community.
And it's not the end of it, because the budget, it's always a problem, because if the budget comes directly from the municipality, it comes after the project, so the project doesn't happen. The other thing that happened there is that they decided to funnel it through the community center and to make it accessible on the spot.
Different.
Which again made a big difference. So you had this structural change that allowed a different way of sending the budget, and then it allowed the project to actually happen.
I would even say more, because if the Palestinians say...
We have to round up.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I will say more later.
It's because the municipality is waiting for us at 1, so that's why I need to round up.
No, you're right.
Thanks a lot for the presentation, and I hope you also now see the linkage, I see at least, since we are very curious to know how this innovative projects in infrastructure projects